Alrighty, so it's time to finish off the review of match week number 2 as we look at these last 6 games. And we start off with the first one between the Chicago Fire versus NYCFC. And, this was a game where, as expected, NYCFC was going to get off to a good start to this game. And then they almost had the opening goal just 11 minutes in, if it wasn't for the post getting in the way of Jason's shot and NYCFC the opener. And then Pereira had a chance as he was going through on goal, but unfortunately he couldn't put that one on target. And like I said, NYCFC, the sharper team, it was expected because we know the Chicago Fire is going to have to try to shake off the preseason rust. They were one of the 3 teams that did not play in the opening weekend's matchup, but they were actually the only team that was not scheduled in the opening weekend's matchup. So early on, you knew that it was going to take a while for them to get going, but in the 23rd minute, they had their first big opportunity. Shibilko, he actually went in on goal there, but knowing this is Kasper Shibilko, he probably is not going to finish that, and that is exactly the case. I even wrote, in classic Shibilko fashion, he puts that one over the bar, and just another example why Fire fans are kind of fed up of seeing Kasper Shibilko being their main number 9 of this team. But in the 39th minute, NYCFC would take the lead. So to add insult to injury for the Fire, and Shibilko missed that chance, they would concede here with Pereira scoring here to give NYCFC a 1-0 lead. And yeah, that was pretty bad defending from the Chicago Fire there. But NYCFC wouldn't care. They were leading 1-0, and that would be the scoreline heading into the second half. Now in the second half, Richie would deny Pellegrini as he was trying to round the keeper. And once again, I thought NYCFC started the second half the better team and were looking to try to get the double their lead. Though in the 73rd minute, Jimenez flashed an absolute rocket of a shot that just goes wide. I mean, if that one went in, that would have been one of the more spectacular goals that we saw this week. Obviously, I don't think that would have won the goal of the week because we talked about back in part 1 with the Robert Taylor chest and volley goal. That is definitely going to be guaranteed to win goal of the week. But if this one went in, it would have maybe at least give a little bit of competition. But unfortunately, this one did not go in. It went wide off the net. But what did went in was Fabian Herbert's in the 75th minute shot as he scored here to ties the game up at 1 apiece. It took a wicked deflection here. Again, we've seen this happen in this early season where there's been a lot of goals that have come off of a wicked deflection and goes in, and that, for the Fire, even though they weren't playing well in this game, sometimes you just get those break. And just like that, the game was tied up at 1 apiece, though Thiago Andrade tried to give NYCFC the lead again, but he could not put away his opportunity. And then Martins had a header that was actually flicked right to Chanot, and I don't know if Maxime Chanot knew a lot about it. I think he was kind of a little surprised the ball kind of came to him, and he basically flicked that one wide in the back post. And then in the 84th minute, it looked like the Fire was going to come from behind in this, as Haile Selassie would score here. And it looks like he was going to have a dream debut here of getting the winning goal for the Fire. But the problem is, the goal was disallowed for offside as the offside flag came up. But there was no doubt the game was up for grabs. I mean, both of these teams were looking for that elusive winner, but unfortunately, neither of these teams were able to do, as in the end, it ends in a 1-1 draw. Shots in this one, 9 shots apiece for both of these teams. 1 shot on goal for the 3 that NYCFC had. 6 shots off target for the 3 that NYCFC had. 3 shots that was blocked for the 2 that the Fire has. And possession-wise, 51% possession compared to the 49% possession that NYCFC has in this game. And there's no doubt that I think for both of these teams, it's still kind of an under construction kind of squad that they have heading into the season. I mean, for NYCFC, they definitely want to hope that eventually Santi Rodriguez is going to be back into this team. I mean, they already announced that he, of course, signed on a permanent deal, but they definitely need him back in terms of that creativity. But for the Chicago Fire, again, the thing is, that they have found themselves a number 9, and I think he's also on his way of playing for this team, and he probably will be the guy that takes place of the spot that Shibilko currently has. But yeah, it's kind of a working in progress for both of these teams, and this is kind of a game that is not going to really inspire both fan base in terms of their chances in terms of making the playoffs. Though I will say that I'll give NYCFC more of the chance because it is still kind of an complete roster. Whereas for the Chicago Fire, I've already said in the season preview, there's a lot of question still surround this team heading into this year, and this resort definitely does not help that. But moving on, in the next match, we got Dallas versus the LA Galaxy, and this was the Dallas that I remember from last season. Because, coming into this game, you knew that they had to have a bounce back performance, and at least early on, they kind of showed that, because in the third minute of the game, Ferreira actually hits one that struck the post before Martinez would heads it wide from the corner in the 5th minute, and I thought 5 minutes in, Dallas already looked more threatening than they have in the entire game that they had against Minnesota. But unfortunately, that would not last, because just like the Chicago Fire, we knew that Dallas was going to have the advantage early because the Galaxy is playing their first game and they're trying to shake off that rust, and they kind of shake it off a little bit faster than the Chicago Fire, because they started to go on the attack in the 10th minute with Alvarez having the first opportunity for the visitor, but he hits one right to pass. Same thing with Bergman just 2 minutes later. And again, they have woke up. They were looking for the opening goal. Puig then puts it wide from long range in the 27th minute. But then in the 35th minute, the Galaxy got their deserved opener. It's Joveljic scoring from there down, and Alvarez to make it 1-0 in favor of the Galaxy. That's got to feel good for Dejan Joveljic. I mean, I've mentioned that in the preview, this was a big game for him. And really, this is going to be big for him for these next couple of weeks. The fact that he's going to continue to tell Greg Vanney that, yeah, he deserved to be the regular starters, or even maybe be the regular starter alongside with Chicharito, and he's been proving again, scoring another goal in this one. Already got the new year start off to a great start. And yeah, the Galaxy were leading 1-0 in this one. They looked like they were going to get the second goal, but then pass denied Edwards in the near post. And really, besides the first 10 minutes, it's been all Galaxy in this one. But then in the 2nd minute of stoppage time, this is when the game turned. Velasco would score from Arriola to tie the game up at 1 apiece, and that has to be a backbreaker for the LA Galaxy. And also, not to mention, not great defending from the Galaxy in this play. That would be a theme throughout this game, especially on the transition. But just the fact that they were so dominant for majority part of the first half, and then they gave up a goal like that right on the stroke of halftime. Yeah, that was just an absolute killer. And it had, like I said, it really kind of changed the momentum. And this is where the game really kind of took a turn the other way, because in the second half, Dallas carried that momentum. They were on the front foot. They were looking to try to carry the momentum from that late first half equalizer, and they were able to get the lead for the first time in the 53rd minute. It's Jesus Ferreira. He opens his 2023 goal scoring account from Arriola and Velasco to make it 2-1 in favor of Dallas. That has to be great news for Dallas fans, seeing all three of their front three getting on the goal scoring sheet and on the assist chart. And again, in this game, they were much better in this one compared to the one they had against Minnesota, and they had to be, because that first game that they had, that front three was just not performing at anywhere close to the potential that they had last season. Velasco then hits one right to Bond in the 61st minute, but then in the 64th minute, Dallas would make it 3-1, and it's Jesus Ferreira scoring his second goal of the season from Palmico and Tomasi. That one came off of a transitional play, and again, Dallas was being very lethal in terms of that, but the Galaxy was just being lazy in terms of their transitional defending. And then Ferreira had a chance to go for a hat trick in the 70th minute, but he puts that one high there. And again, it's all Dallas ever since that equalizer came in. And the Galaxy, again, having no answer in terms of dealing with Dallas transition, and just they looked like they were hitting the self-destruction button as soon as they gave up that equalizer. Though in the 74th minute, Puig would hit one right to pass before Jude would puts one just wide from close range, as the Galaxy kind of started to realize that, yeah, they need to think about making this game interesting, because, the entire second half they were second best, but again, they were trying to make it a little bit interesting, and I thought Dallas kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit, and that's kind of a dangerous thing when you're holding on to a 2-goal lead, even if you're at home, because, if the Galaxy get one back, then all of a sudden, this is game on. But in the 89th minute, Paz would deny Puig with a full stretch save. Martin Paz, much better game in this one. I mean, the last game he had against Minnesota, I mentioned, it was not a good game, especially the goal that he conceded. That was definitely not not a great moment for Martin Paz. But this one, much better game for him. And yeah, that was kind of the same case for FC Dallas. They were able to bounce back from their opening weekend loss at home with a 3-1 victory over the LA Galaxy. Shots in this one, 11 shots compared to 13 that the Galaxy had. 6 shots on goal compared to 4 that Dallas had. 6 shots off target compared to 4 that the Galaxy had. 3 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that Dallas had. And possession-wise, 45% possession compared to 55% possession that the Galaxy has. And despite the fact that the Galaxy kind of had the better of the stat sheet, the difference in this game is just the clinical finishing that Dallas shows in this game. And also just some bad defending from the Galaxy. And again, this is going to be a thing that we're gonna see again. And I think Galaxy fans, unfortunately, they're kind of sick of seeing this happening over and over again for the past couple of years. But yeah, it just feels like it's gonna be one of those years once again where, you know, for the Galaxy, you know, I think that they will be a playoff team. But the back line is going to really determine whether or not if they're going to be a team that finish high up the table, or if they're going to be a team that is just going to be barely make the playoffs, or even worse, miss out on the playoffs on decision day. Because if they perform like that in this game against Dallas, it could definitely be that team that could be on the lower end of making the playoffs, or even missing out on the playoffs on the final day of the season. But that being said, moving on in the next match. We got St. Louis and Charlotte FC. So, once again, I'm wearing St. Louis in a review, and I know I've been wearing St. Louis a lot in terms of these review and preview, and it's not because I love this jersey, but it's because St. Louis continue to make history. I mean, this is the first time ever an expansion team is able to score 3 goals in back-to-back games, and this is also the first time since 2018 that we saw an expansion team won the first 2 games. LAFC, of course, were able to do that, and now St. Louis become that team and become only the 4th expansion team in MLS history to win their first 2 games. Now, in the first half, it was a wonderful stadium tifo, and we knew that the energy of this game was going to be electric, and it definitely did not disappoint. I mean, the noise of this game really reminds me of when Charlotte, of course, opening their home opener against the Galaxy in front of 75,000 plus. And the team kind of responded that by performing well, at least early in this one. Klaus would blast it high after Sisiega gave it away to Gioacchini. Yeah, you do not want to give gifts to the St. Louis team, because I think from what we know for this first 2 games for the St. Louis team, they have been able to get gifts, and they will definitely not hesitate to take advantage of that gift. And, you know, for Charlotte, very fortunate for them that they did not go 1-0 down just 5 minutes in. But to Sisiega credit, he did redeem himself by denying all shots from close range, as against St. Louis, they were on the front foot, they were pressing for the opener, and that, I think, kind of was expected, because you can see that this crowd, that it was definitely acting like the 12th man. Like, with every chances that St. Louis was getting, the crowd just gets louder and louder, to a point where I thought that this was maybe one of those situations where the crowd eventually is going to will that go in for St. Louis. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem like was the case, at least. Just a little spoiler alert, because after Sisiega was able to palm away Lovin volley long-range shot away from long range, and despite the fact that the shots was 6-0 in favor of St. Louis up until the 25th minute mark, it's Charlotte, the one that gets the opening goal. It's Enzo Capetti. He opens his goal-scoring account in MLS here, and again, hopefully one of many goals that Enzo Capetti will score for the Charlotte team, at least in a Charlotte fan's perspective, as he scored here from Schwedetsky and Josviak to make it 1-0 in favor of Charlotte. And that's kind of the real DP contribution, because you got one DP here on the goal scoring, one DP here on the assist, and the other DP here on the secondary assist. And yeah, that kind of stunned the crowd at City Park, because up to that point, St. Louis was by far the better team. I mean, I even wrote it was just an absolute backbreaker for St. Louis, because again, it was the first shot that Charlotte had, the first real opportunity that Charlotte has a chance to put the ball into the back of net, and they do. But that also gives credit to what Enzo Capetti did, because, you know, that's the thing that I think we're going to see a lot of him, and this is the thing that if he can do that for the Charlotte team, that is good news for Charlotte, and he is definitely worth every penny of them paying him during this off season. Now, in the 34th minute, there was a huge shout for a penalty for Charlotte that was not given. In fact, Enzo Capetti, he was the one that he was trying to win a penalty, but it was not given, and he was absolutely livid. I mean, he was livid to a point where he, even during when the halftime whistle was blown, he was still at having earphones with the fourth official about it. Now, when I look back on that play, I do think in the end, and that's not a penalty, and I think if Enzo Capetti can actually watch that on the replay, he knows that that's not a penalty, because I think he kind of sold that a little bit too much. And that's the thing with when you try to draw a penalty, you got to make sure that if you're going to try to draw a penalty, you don't want to sow it to a point where it's pretty obvious that the referee is not going to call that. And I think in that play, Capetti, I feel like he was already kind of falling down on the ground. Like, I get what he was trying to do. He was trying to maybe bait oh god, I forgot who it was that was on the receiving end of that. But yeah, I get what he was trying to do, but unfortunately he just didn't do it good enough to a point where the referee realized that that looked like it was a dive, and I'm not going to give you the penalty. So yeah, no penalty was given to Charlotte, but Charlotte did kind of took control of this game and really kind of took the crowd out of it, because while it was a party atmosphere, at least for the first 25 minutes, the crowd was kind of quiet after the opening goal was scored from Charlotte. But they wouldn't be quiet for long, because in the 41st minute, St. Louis get the equalizer. And it's an unfortunate own goal from Bill Tuiluma here. I mean, he was trying to head this one away, but instead he heads this one backwards, and it was just one of those weird situations where when someone heads it backwards, it actually gone under the goalkeeper. In this case, it gone under Cesiaga there. But those St. Louis fans don't care. The game is tied up at one apiece. I don't remember the last time I've seen a team score their very first goal in their home stadium, and it is an own goal. But that immediately got the crowd back into it, and you knew that the momentum was swinging right back to the host, and they took advantage of that momentum by earning themselves a penalty in the second minute of stoppage time, as this penalty was given after Shradetsky handballed that one in the box. No doubt that's a penalty. I mean, Shradetsky, his hand was in an outstretched position, and in the 5th minute of stoppage time, in stepped Edouard Leuven a chance to give St. Louis the lead, and he does. But he almost fired this one over the bar. Like, when this ball was hit, I mean, he definitely hit this one at a poster stem area where no goalkeeper is going to save it, but it's also kind of risky when you try to do that. And at first look, it looked like that was going to be rising and gone over the bar, but thankfully for Leuven, it hits in a perfect area where, again, Cesiaga, he had no shots in terms of saving. Even if he dives the right way, there is no chance you're saving that one from the top left corner. But yeah, that gives St. Louis the 2-1 lead heading into the second half. And in the second half, Cesiaga had to deny Klaus in front of goal. The shots were 9-2 in favor of St. Louis. Like, St. Louis was still dominating the game up to that point. And then in the 70th minute, they kill this game off. It's João Klaus scoring for the second consecutive game. And also for the second consecutive game, St. Louis was the benefit of the doubt of a bad giveaway, as it's Melenda this time having a Kip Keller moment. Though I will say that unlike Kip Keller, where he just kind of passed this one straight to Jared Strout in the last game, Klaus actually did a good job in terms of actually picking off this back pass. I mean, I'm not saying that this is a good back pass or whatsoever, but Klaus did a good job in terms of at least picking this one off, and it's not as bad as the Kip Keller moment that we saw last week between St. Louis and Austin. But nevertheless, yeah, not a great moment there for Melenda. And I think this maybe is a message to every team that faces St. Louis right now. Do not pass back to your goalkeeper, or at least don't do it casually, because it's already shown in the first two games, when you pass it back to the goalkeeper casually, you're going to get burned. And that's exactly what happened in this one. João Klaus picked it off. He chipped it over Cesiaga. It's 3-1 St. Louis. The crowd goes absolutely nuts. Then on the other end, Berkey was able to rob Santos from point blank, and that was a big save too, because if Charlotte would have got themselves back into this game, could have set up a very nervy moment. But instead, they mentioned St. Louis could becoming the 4th MLS expansion team to win their first 2 games, and they would eventually be that case, as in the end they win 3-1 against Charlotte. Shots in this one, 11 shots for the 6 that Charlotte has, 5 shots on goal for the 3 that Charlotte has, 2 shots that was off target for the 3 that St. Louis had, 3 shots that was blocked for the 1 that Charlotte has, and possession-wise, 61% possession compared to 39% possession that St. Louis has it in this game. And yeah, right now St. Louis are kind of on the path of LAFC, where, you know, LAFC, remember their expansion year, winning their first 2 games and eventually make it to the playoffs. And I do believe that just based on the limited sample size that we've seen from St. Louis in the league, this is definitely a playoff team. This is definitely a team that I think can make the playoffs. And I think it's also shouldn't be a big surprise, the fact that they've been playing well, because I did say when this team have said themselves that they have found an identity, that's already a step ahead of what most expansion team does. Most expansion team, it definitely takes a while for them to find an identity, but because of the fact that this team has an identity, and it seems like they already have some good chemistry within the team, this team could be a dangerous team and could be right up there on the same level of LAFC. And I would say that it's compared to this team, compared to what we saw with LAFC or even Atlanta United in their expansion season, I would say this team is even more impressive with the way that, unlike Atlanta and LAFC, you know, those teams, they had some star players and some well-known commodity that turns out to do very well. When you look at this team, I mean, no disrespect to some of these players, but, you know, there's a lot of big questions around whether these players will work out, and so far it has definitely worked out. I mean, Joe Klaus has been everything that they hoped for. Edouard Leuven has really started to become one of the best deep lying playmaker in this league. And, you know, I know it's still early days, but this is a team that I think they can definitely make the playoffs if they can keep up the pace that they're on. Well, I wouldn't say keep up the pace, because, you know, it's been a dream start, but even if they drop off a little bit, if they continue to get win these games, why not? Why not? We see St. Louis becoming an unprecedented dark horse and an expansion team that I would say kind of almost similar to what we saw with Nashville a couple of years ago, where, again, not a lot of people had a lot of expectation of Nashville doing well, and then they just came out of nowhere and made it to the playoffs and even won a playoff game. But that being said, moving on in the next match is Colorado versus Sporting KC. So this was the third and final 0-0 draw that we saw from this weekend's action. But I would say that compared to all 3 of these 0-0 draws, this one was probably the most entertaining one. And I think this will be in a contention of, you know, if there is a contention for some of the most entertaining 0-0 draws that we've seen this season, this will definitely be one of them. Because I feel like this was just a classic 0-0 draw where nobody just can finish. And also the goalkeeping turns out to be very well, especially from a Colorado Rapids perspective. But early on, Yappy was in on goal, and he had a chance to get his first ever goal in his career in MLS, but postcam says no. He denied him on a 1v1 opportunity. And once again, Colorado, they look lively in this one, but Sporting, again, looked very shaky early at the back, just like what we saw in the game between the Portland Timbers. And also, Darren Yappy, I'm definitely keeping a close eye on this kid. I mean, there's been a lot that talks about how this kid is definitely has some raw ability to be a very decent player in MLS, and based on the first 2 games and a small sample size, I can definitely see that he has the potential to do so. Though Espinoza did put one right to Yarbrough before Yappy looked like he finally scored his first MLS goal, but VAR basically said no. It was disallowed for offside, and as much as I really was hoping that was the case where Yappy would get his deserved first goal, yeah, you know, rules is rule. He is clearly in an offside position, and yeah, that of course keep this game scoreless between both of these teams. But in the 19th minute, Espinoza once again fired one right to Yarbrough before Tommy would hit one right to Yarbrough as well. And again, Sporting, they were creating chances, most of them coming from outside the box, but that's the problem with them, at least in the first half, where just too many of those shots came outside of the box. And even though the shots on goal tally and the amount of save that Yarbrough was starting to tally up, a lot of them was just easy save. Like, he just had to kind of catch it, and that's usually some of the most easiest save tally that a goalkeeper can tally. But we do head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams, and in the second half, chances continue to come. Voltaire would hit one right to Yarbrough, and then Shaarawy would hit one into the side netting, as Sporting KC was pressing early for the lead in the second half. And then it became the Yarbrough show. I mean, it was already kind of the Yarbrough show with him making a couple of saves, but this is when he really needs to make some good save because he first denied Tommy, but Agata did get the rebound, and Agata was trying to put that one back in, but Yarbrough said no. He robbed him there on that play. To be fair, it wouldn't have counted because the flag went up for offside, but yeah, you know, Yarbrough at that moment, he didn't know that would have been offside, and that's a great save from him. And in the 70th minute, it was pretty much a carbon copy. Yarbrough was able to deny Tommy, but this time it's Showery the one that gets the rebound, but Yarbrough basically said, no, you're not getting past me. He denied Showery there on the second chances, and right now, Yarbrough is just a wall in this game. Like, he's basically saying he's not letting anything get past him, and that has to be something that, you know, you talk about a bounce-back performance. This was definitely a bounce-back performance for William Yarbrough. And he needs this kind of game because he knows that there is that pressure of him performing, knowing the fact that the Rapids just signed a new goalkeeper for this coming season. And after just a disastrous performance he had against the Sounders, this was definitely a much needed bounce back. But on the other end, not to outshine by the amazing ability of Yarbrough, the Sporting KC goalkeeper, John Postgame, also make a good save, this time denying Barrios in the near post before on the other end, Yarbrough would rob Showery as he was in on goal there. And then Maxwell had a chance to get the late winner for the Rapids, but he hit that one onto the roof of the net. And despite the fact that both teams had a lot of chances in this one, it ends in a scoreless draw. And the shots in this one tells you that both teams had a lot of shots and chances. 17 shots compared to 13 that the Rapids had. Like 30 shots combined for both of these teams, and not one of them went in the net. Same with the shots on goal. 11 shots on goal for Sporting KC compared to the 4 that the Rapids has had. And it's not often you see a team register double-digit shots on goal and unable to put one in the back of the net. No shots off target for the 8 that the Rapids had. 1 shot that was blocked for the 6 that Sporting KC had. And possession-wise, 60% possession compared to 40% possession that Sporting KC has. And I'm not sure if either of these teams is going to be happy with this result. Because for Sporting KC, you know, the good news is at least they didn't lose this one despite being the better team. But the bad news is they're still snake bitten with the amount of chances that they give. And like, again, this was similar to the Timbers game. They had the opportunity to score, and yet they still have goose egg in terms of the goal scoring tally for this season. And for the Colorado Rapids, again, a much better performance in this one compared to the game where they just got absolutely flattened against the Seattle Sounders. But again, just unable to put away those opportunity. And then at the back, you know, there's been a couple of shaky moments there, and if it wasn't for Yarbrough bailing them out with a couple of big saves, this could have been a completely different game. Maybe Sporting KC would have walked away with all 3 points in this one. But nevertheless, I am now going to switchboard one more time as we're going to look at the final 2 game of match week number 2, including the one that I've attended yesterday between the San Jose Earthquakes versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. So, speaking of which, let's now talk about the Quakes and the Whitecaps. And I'm not going to lie, this was kind of an infuriating game to watch, at least for the first 70 minutes until the Quakes got the equalizer, where they were the better team in this game against the Vancouver Whitecaps. I mean, maybe besides the first 15 minutes where they kind of got off to a slow start, but for the majority of this one, they had a lot of chances for them to get themselves the equalizer. And thankfully for them, they didn't end up in the same path as what we saw with Sporting KC, Colorado, and even in some extents to Cincinnati, as we talked about in part 1 of the review, where they weren't able to show their clinical finishing and actually able to come from behind to win 2-1 against the Vancouver Whitecaps. But in the first half, not much happening in the first 10 minutes. The first shot didn't come until the 13th minute when Cal had a header that just goes wide. But then in the 17th minute, Vancouver takes the lead. It's Alessandro Sharp scoring from Gressel to make it 1-0 in favor of the Whitecaps. Bad turnover from Gressel. I mean, that was just an inexcusable turnover from Carlos Gressel there, who I didn't think he had a decent game in this one. But also even worse defending from the Quakes, and especially from Daniel, who, again, he came off his lines here. You know, when you're a goalkeeper and you come off his lines, you cannot be kind of indecided and just in a sitting duck position to trying to parry that one away. And I think that was kind of the situation where I feel like Daniel has to be more braver. He has to come, if he is going to come off his lines, he's got to come off his lines heavy and trying to smother that. But instead, he didn't. He kind of came off his line, kind of stutter, almost trying to maybe make a save, and that's just not going to do it. But credit Vancouver. They were clinical in terms of getting the opening goal. Though in the 20th minute, Triaco did have a header that goes straight to Takaoka before Montero fires it wide on the free kick. Martins then had a rare opportunity for the Whitecaps, but he blasts one into the stands before Takaoka would deny Cal in the near post. And then Cal actually had a chance on the corner, but he heads it just wide before Mensah also heads it wide on a header. And again, the Quakes, they were getting a lot of chances up to that point, but the finishing was just a huge problem. I mean, there was times where there was some glorious opportunity for both, or for the Quakes in this one, but they were either not putting enough one toward net, but it looked like maybe Takaoka was trying to steal this one, like what we've seen with some goalkeepers this week, trying to steal a result for their respective team on the road. But the shots were 6-3 in favor of the Quakes, which that was a big surprise because it felt like the shots were more than that up to that point. Ibovasi then heads it just wide in the 39th minute, and again, despite just a lot of chances for the Quakes in the first half, the Whitecaps somehow has a 1-0 lead. And heading into the second half, again, the Quakes were having the possession, but the attack, I thought it still kind of looked disconnected and at times discombobulated. I mean, I will also say that in the first half, don't let the amount of chances that the Quakes had distract you from the fact that there were times where I was very frustrated with the attack. I was very frustrated with at times how the attack was very disconnected, especially between the midfield and our attacker, and it kind of showed at least in the first couple of minutes of the second half. Though Ibovasi did blast it high after just a terrible giveaway from the Whitecaps before Triaco puts it way wide from long range, and up to that point I just thinking like it doesn't look like this is going to happen for the Quakes. But then it did happen for the Quakes, as in the 69th minute, after all those blown chances that the Quakes had, they finally put one away, and it's Jeremy Ibovasi that scores from Montero and Yu. And what's interesting about that goal is that was not an easy header from Jeremy Ibovasi. Like, the fact that when that ball was put into the box and there was not a lot of pace in that, and the fact that he kind of had to connect his neck muscle to redirect that one toward goal. I mean, I guess that's kind of the adventure of Jeremy Ibovasi. He maybe missed some sitters like what we saw in the first half, but you know, he's able to also put away some really difficult chances, and maybe that's also kind of the same case for the Quakes, where, hey, if they keep missing easy chances, maybe sometimes they'll just put away those tough chances, and everything will balance out. But at least that's kind of the case on the scoreline, as the Quakes finally tied the game up at 1 apiece. But if you're a Whitecaps fan, yeah, you knew what's coming. Like, I had a feeling that as soon as this game was tied up at 1 apiece, looks like the Quakes were going to have a chance to get the second goal, and they did. In the 77th minute, it's Acapo. He scored his first career MLS goal from Espinoza and Ibovasi to make it 2-1 in favor of the Quakes. This was just champagne soccer from the Quakes. Like, just the build-up of that was just some Man City level kind of build-up with the way that they completely ripped apart that Whitecaps defense, and as a result, they were able to take the lead in this one. Though in the 85th minute, Daniel did deny Tybert in the front post, and the Whitecaps were definitely pressing late to try to get the equalizer. And this is where I want to see whether or not if the Quakes learned their lesson from last week against Atlanta. Can they be able to close out a game? And in fact, it was kind of deja vu again because of the fact that there was 7 minutes of stoppage time, and I'm thinking, well, here we go. Is the Quakes are able to close out game? Is Luchi Gonzalez going to have the ability to get this team to close out to get all 3 points? And they were able to do so. But that is not before they had a chance to make it 3-1 if it wasn't for Takaoka just absolutely robbing Kikanovic on a free header from about 4 yards out. I mean, Kikanovic, I think he'll be happy that his team won, but I think he was definitely going to be thinking about how he did not put that one away. But at the same time, what a save that was from Takaoka, and I do feel bad for Takaoka in this one. I mean, he's going to have these kind of moments at least multiple times this season where he's going to be hung out to dry by this Whitecaps defense. I mean, maybe he will try to ask Thomas Assal or even Maxime Crepeau if he even have his number in terms of how to deal with getting hung out to dry by a very bad Whitecaps defense, because again, I won't be surprised that this won't be the last time we'll see getting hung out to dry, despite the fact that he's been making some incredible saves to keep this team in the game. But yeah, in the end, the Quakes were able to bounce back and win 2-1 in this one. Shots in this one, 20 shots compared to 7 that the Whitecaps had. I think that's like the most shots that any team has had this week. And it's not a big surprise the Quakes put up big amount of shots that the against the Whitecaps. I mean, after all, they did break the record for the most shot in a game against the Whitecaps a couple of years ago, when I remember they had like 40 free shots on against the Whitecaps. But 6 shots on goal compared to 2 that the Whitecaps had, 9 shots off target compared to 3 that the Whitecaps had, 5 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Vancouver has, and possession-wise, the Quakes did have better the possession, 60% possession compared to the 40% possession that the Whitecaps has in this game. But for Vancouver, it's deja vu all over again. This is just like the first match week where, for most part of this game they had the 1-0 lead. Though I think the only difference is that at least in the first game they were kind of the better team, and in this one they were kind of just on the back foot and was just kind of holding on for dear life. And how many times we've seen before, when you're on the road and you're just trying to hold on for dear life, most of the time that's not going to work out. And it's not a big surprise that it did not work out in this game for the Whitecaps. In fact, the equalizer that they conceded was literally around the same time that they conceded the equalizer to RSL. And then just like the game against RSL, they give up another goal in quick succession. In fact, there was actually a bit of an injury that happened between the 69th and 77 minutes, so there was like about 4 or 5 minutes stoppage. So in some way, if that stoppage didn't happen, the Quakes would have literally did the same thing that RSL did to the Whitecaps last week, which is scored 2 goals in quick succession to really kind of turn the game on its head. And again, that is something that the Whitecaps got to figure out, and it doesn't get easier for them, because now that they got CCL, and this is where, I mean, for me, I know that they want to do well in CCL and still want to put a good showing in terms of it, but I think for Vanni Sartini, he needs to just focus on the league. I mean, CCL will be a bonus, but he just needs to focus on the league, because this is exactly what they do not want to do, just like what we saw last season, which is getting off to a slow start and can really already face an uphill battle in terms of trying to make it to the playoffs. But that being said, moving on into the last game on this board, and the last game of match week number 2 that I'm going to talk about is the Seattle Sounders versus RSL. So RSL tried to do something they did to the Sounders before, which is they try to bunker and maybe get a lucky transitional play and get a goal, or maybe even get a 0-0 draw out of this game. But Seattle was having none of it. Seattle was making sure that this time they're actually going to show that clinical finishing and put away those chances, and they did exactly that in this one against RSL. Though early on, McMath did deny Ladero, but Hebert actually got a second crack of it, and originally this one was partially saved by McMath, but unfortunately this one was toward goal. Like, I thought that one was gonna go past or that one was gonna be goal bound, and it was gonna go across the line, but somehow in some way Justin Glad kind of came out of nowhere, cleared that one off the line, and I did see on the replay whether or not if that is the case, and it is. I think that one did not clear. That one did not go all the way across the line, and as a result, we stay 0-0 in this one. Though Hebert had another opportunity, but he drills one into the side netting. And after RSL kind of enjoyed some spell of possession, I mean, I thought early on RSL was kind of controlling this game. That was really the only time that they kind of controlled this game, because Seattle started to control this game, and that was kind of the case for the rest of the one. And eventually, they get the opening goal in this one. It's Jordan Morris scoring from Alex Rodon to give Seattle a 1-0 lead. It's been a great start for Jordan Morris this season. You know, last game he of course scored. I think he scored 2 goals in that one against the Colorado Rapids, and now he's got a third one in this one against RSL. McMath then denied Hebert as he was coming off his lines. Don't worry, Hebert would of course get his goal, so that's a little bit of a spoiler alert, but we do head to halftime with the Sounders leading 1-0. Now in the second half, Ladero would blast it high from long range before Savarino with a rare RSL chance, but he puts that one high. And then in the 58th minute, like I said, Hebert would eventually get his goal as he scored here from Alex Rodon to give Seattle a 2-0 lead. And yeah, the Sounders completely controlling this game, and RSL was just kind of being pinned deep and just keep turning the ball over and over again in the midfield. Then Hebert was through on goal here, but he was denied by McMath. I mean, Hebert could have easily had a hat trick in this game. He had a lot of chances in this one. But the good news is that, oh, also just realized I spelled his name wrong here. Let me get rid of the S. It's not Herbert, it's a bear there. That got the goal. But yeah, like I said, with him, he could have easily had a hat trick with so many chances that he had. And in the 87th minute, Rui Diaz could have also had a goal too, but the post says no. But it did kind of fall kindly right back to João Paulo, who blasts that one high over the bar, and you can see that João Paulo, he immediately collapsed on the ground, and he was just in disbelief that he couldn't put that one away. I mean, I know João Paulo is more known of scoring banger of a goal, but yeah, that's one that he would absolutely want to have back, with him just having an empty net to aim at and just blast that one over the bar. But thankfully, it didn't really did too much to harm Seattle in this one, because they were already pretty comfortable up to that point. That was just maybe a cherry on the top. But they still walk away with a comfortable 2-0 victory over RSL. Shots in this one, 19 shots compared to 7 that RSL had. 8 shots on goal compared to 2 that RSL had. 6 shots off target for the 3 that RSL has. 2 shots that was blocked compared to 5 that Seattle has. And possession-wise, 60% possession compared to the 40% possession that RSL has in this game. And I guess this is what happened if we see a Seattle and RSL game, where if the Sounders were able to put away their chances, they were able to win. And I'm pretty sure they're probably thinking about some of those previous meetings, especially in the playoffs a couple of years ago, of what if they actually put away one of their chances against RSL. They probably would have won that playoff game. But nevertheless, they'll be happy to get all 3 points again. And again, just looking how Seattle has looked in the first 2 games, they look like they're back. They look like a team that could be a Supporters' Shield contender. And for RSL, yeah, unfortunately, this was just, Pablo Mastroeni tried to do it again, but unfortunately, I think the Sounders eventually figure out his tactics, and that, again, it's all about, this is kind of a dangerous tactics to use when you're playing on the road, where you just kind of sit deep and hope for the best, because if you concede 1 goal, you basically find yourself behind the 8 ball, and that once RSL can see that first goal, you just kind of had a sense that there was no coming back from them. And that this is not like Vancouver, basically, where Vancouver would make some sloppy mistake. Yeah, Seattle was not going to do that, and that's kind of also the case with this Sounders team. They don't concede a lot of goals at home, and especially don't concede when they take the lead first at home. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at all of these matches from match week number 2. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this second part of the review, looking at these 6 games. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button. Don't forget, we got CCL games that's going to be happening in the middle of the week, so I'm definitely going to be doing some reviews in terms of these CCL games. Always fun to do some of these review of these CCL games. But yeah, like I said, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.